succulents. Succulents have become hugely popular right now. They're easy to care for, and they're easy to go with a lot of different styles. You're seeing them run a lot of artwork right now. They have beautiful colors, striking patterns. Patterns really seem to be the thing right now in decor, in home decor. You can really get a lot of patterns, rosettes and fine patterns and waves and all these different color variations of succulents. So everybody's really loving succulents right now. We're kind of glad to see them take their turn around again because they really are a wonderful plant. There's so many varieties. We could go on and on about all the different varieties. We couldn't possibly cover them all right now. So let's just kind of go into the basics. Basically, a succulent has this sort of fleshy stem or leaf that stores water and allows it to go through periods of drought. That's, in a nutshell, what a succulent is. And that makes them perfect for those areas where you just can't, get to all the time. You put them, they're great for people that just don't have a lot of time and forget to water a lot, or just don't want to put a messy plant on the desk, on the shelf. Some places where they just don't have time or room. They don't take up much space because of the fact that they're storing water in their leaves. They don't need a lot of root space. They actually have very, very fine roots, rather hair-like actually. If you were to pull these out of the pots, let's see if I can pull this one out, you would see it doesn't look anything like another plant when you pull it out of the pot. Normally you see a mass of fleshy looking roots. This one, you see the roots are very, very fine. I'm not even sure how well it shows up on the camera. The roots are very fine. Some succulents, especially the cactus, their roots are actually finer than this. And you can see they never really get that root down. There's actually a huge amount of soil in the ratio to roots here compared to other plants of the same size. So they don't have a lot of root mass. Basically, those roots are there to catch water during a downpour. They're generally very shallow. Succulents never root down deep. Because they're growing in areas that get infrequent water. But when the water does come, it doesn't always go in deep because the ground is now so dry and so sun-baked that it doesn't absorb right away. So the roots stay shallow. So they don't need real deep pots. So you'll see a lot of times the containers for these very, very shallow. This right here is an excellent container for cactus and succulents. I've got a few up here. You don't need to go real deep on these. A lot of times you'll see some types of cacti and succulents in a little bit deeper pot, only because this pot is rather old and actually it's got a very chunky medium in it, and that also helps to keep it balanced. This right here is a blue spiral. It hasn't quite started spiraling yet, but it'll go into random spirals as it grows. And so it'll just, kind of like a tower on a Russian castle, you'll see these spiraling towers on it. Really, really cool looking cactus. So with these, they're very slow growing, so they're in this bigger pot, but actually a lot of this is just because this has so much water weight in it. It tends to be a little bit heavy, top heavy. And so a little bit bigger pot can kind of help with that, but they put in a medium that is often like a thick cinder. Makes it heavy without making it too wet, because these plants don't want to have wet roots all the time. They're built for the desert or even subtropic kind of desert areas, and they just don't want to have wet roots all the time. In fact, you kind of have to take everything you know about regular plants and throw it out the window with succulents. Normally, you water when the soil is dry, right? But succulents are going to go in the other direction. Just because the soil is dry doesn't mean that the plant wants water. What I like to do is actually feel the leaves. Okay, just kind of give them a press. If they feel firm, don't water. It means it's got plenty, the reserves are full, and we can actually rot the plant or its base and its roots by giving it too much. When you start to feel that leaf soften. All of these non-prickly things, you can just feel them. When you feel them softening, then okay, now it's going to be time to water soon. You don't even have to rush then, actually. So the main thing with succulents is just remembering they do like light. That's something that they pretty much all have in common. They do love a lot of light. They like to be inside windows, maybe right underneath a lamp. You could put them on a little side table underneath a lamp, that would be fine. As long as they're getting plenty of light. They do love a lot of light. I'm going to plant up a little pot here for you, just so that we can kind of go over some little tips for planting them. We want to start off with a medium that drains really well. And the bigger the succulent or the deeper the pot, the better the drainage needs to be, really. Sometimes you'll pick up succulent mixes. These are for cactus and succulent mixes. Little more than really a potting soil with a lot of extra perlite and vermiculite added. Sometimes sand. It's just a little chunkier, just the water's going to run through it faster. You want it to absorb water, just like in a regular plant, but what you don't want is for it to stay too wet too long. It needs to aerate. Some cactus mixes you'll find are even chunkier. It's almost pure gravel or cinder because of the types of succulents that you're using them on. The bigger the pot, really the better that needs to drain and aerate. So what we're going to do, looks like I didn't bring a scoop, so I'll just do this. And what I can even do, if you're thinking that you're using a pot that's too deep, because too much soil can be dangerous because it tends to hold more water. So if you think that the pot is a little too deep, too big for the plant, but you really like that particular pot, you like the way the plant looks in that one, there's something you can do. Whoa, come on out, you little guy. I'm just going to squish this pot here. There we go. If I were to take this and put it in a pot by itself, I would actually try to find a pot that's not much bigger than this is, because it's already got plenty of soil in most cases when you buy these. They really don't need much more, and don't think they need a whole lot of grow room like a normal plant would need. But since in this case I'm going to be putting a whole bunch together, I'm going to use a little bit bigger pot. And what I can do, if I think there's going to be a little too much soil in there, I could just take this pot that the plant came out of, this little plastic thing, and put it in here upside down. Displaces some of the soil, acts like an aerator basically. And then fill in the soil around that if I want to do it that way. Now this pot that I'm using does have drainage holes. I'm going to press this in. Okay. Press the soil in. Pot does have drainage holes. Sometimes you'll see cactus pots that don't have drainage holes, in which case you got to be really careful not to overwater, because you don't want those roots sitting in water. It's really bad. There are a few tricks for dealing with that. Sometimes someone will put a big wide straw or a plastic tube into the soil going down to the bottom. Just kind of put in there, tuck it in the rock so that it doesn't really show that much, but put that in there, and then what that allows you to do is take like a small basting tube. Sometimes you can find a real small, thin, narrow syringe that you can stick in the tube if you think there's extra water down there, and you can actually suck it up. Or you can take a cotton wick and put it in the tube, and it'll wick the moisture out. So there's actually some ways of dealing with problems like that. Again, since they don't need a lot of root space, I can really pack a lot of these in here. I'm going to kind of loosen up the root ball a little bit. Let's see. Let's put you in there. I think there's... You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to put in just 4 of these. I'm going to add some rock, some decorative rock around them. If you have some leaves that break off, you can actually stick those in the soil, and a lot of times they'll take root and turn into a new plant. Because of the fact that they've got water inside of them, they're going to just live off the reserves for a while and build roots using that until they have roots to take up water and nutrients again. So they can live off of that for a while. All right. Okay. Now this one's a Halworthia. You can see the roots are a little bit more fleshy, and I can see some of the roots have a tip on it. I know you can't see it from here, but I can see it looks like some of these roots are actually suckers, trying to start new plants. A lot of succulents, they send out these pups. You see these little baby plants at the base? So this guy, he's got 3 pups. So here's a big one, and there's 3 pups in there, and it looks like more are on the way now that I pulled it out. You'll see this a lot with hens and chicks, aloes, agaves. Okay. For right now, you know what? I'm going to put in these 4, and then I've got another one. Let's see. Who else do we want to go with? I'm feeling pink right now. This is a Kalanchoe. This particular variety is popular for its flowers. It comes in different colors, reds, pinks, whites, yellows, peach. Really super pretty flowers. Sometimes they even come in what we call a double, or where the flowers have multiple layers of petals, and so that they have like a rosette. Actually, they look like a very full-looking rose, a very tiny rose. So again, see those little hair roots. Now, there's different ways to go about this. Some people will, make sure they get plenty of light, and others will not worry about it, and they just use them as sort of an annual. Enjoy them for a while. They can last a pretty long time in less than ideal conditions, and then when they go, they go. That's okay. So some people will do it that way. You don't have to feel bad about doing it. Just like when you plant your petunias and tear them out at the end of the season, replace them with mums, same way. Okay. You can pack them very tightly because they don't need that much root space, so don't be afraid to pack them real close together, no problem. If you have them so close together that it's hard to get your finger in between to pack the soil down, you can use like a pen or a pencil and get that in there. I certainly recommend that if you're doing cactus. Do I have a little cactus? I do. I've got a little cactus right here. Generally with these, I'll use a pair of kitchen tongs, very gently. And then I can pull it out, that way I'm not handling the needles. If the soil is falling off the roots, that's okay. It will not hurt it. So if I wanted to put this in there, I could. I'm not going to, but you can see how much easier it is to handle with the tongs. Just don't press so hard that you're bruising it, but that's okay. I've even got some pieces here that came off of another cactus. So again, very, very, these have those teeny little hairs that get into your skin and you can't get it back out. So definitely handle with care. And then, I'm gonna get that all in there. The leaves are so fleshy, they are kind of breakable, so sometimes it's easier to use a pen or a stick to tamp down that soil. And then sometimes you'll get soil inside the rosettes, you'll kind of have to blow that out. It'll come right out, no problem. Okay, I did that up kind of quick. That's okay. And it's going to be kind of messy, so close your eyes when you do that. Okay, and then what I can also do is decorate in between. I can take, let's have some fun with this. I've got some light green rocks here. I can throw these in. I didn't bring scissors up. Let's see, I've got this, I can open this. I can do a lot of things with this. Now in this case, I'm keeping it pretty simple. Just putting in some decorative rock in between the succulents. And it's really the finishing touch that brings the whole thing to life. It really, truly does. Don't be afraid to use more than one kind of rock too. If you want to make some patterns in there and really design it, you can even, if you'd like, go as far as making a seam. You can see right here, that's exactly what I did. I took a couple of aeoniums and crossed them like palm trees. And I don't know if you can see it, but I made a little hammock in there. So we've got ourselves a little beach scene. We've got some blue sand and blue marbles to make some waves washing up on white sand. It's been cold. I needed to think warm thoughts. So, you can do that. You can see I've actually got a few different types of sand and pebbles in here. I've actually got, 4 different kinds, not counting water. So just like in nature, the ground isn't always unitone. So, really just have fun with that. And I can pile these in. I've got moss, I've got sand and pebbles. These are these little blue plastic gems. Sometimes we use stuff like this for water. I've used all kinds of stuff for water. Blue sand, glass chips, whatever kind of works best for you and your scene, and have fun with it. Or you could just spread these throughout there as just a decorative rock. So put those in there. Now, I had talked about handling cactus with tongs, and as you could see, it was a very small little cactus that I was handling. So the question is, what will we do if it's a much bigger cactus? For example, this Ceres right here. What would we do with this? So the first thing you would do, I'm not actually going to plant this, but I am going to handle it a bit so you can watch. The first thing I would do is put it on the side and just really mush up that root ball. Kind of loosen it up so it's going to slide out. And then, if it's loose enough, I can shake, pull it out that way. I'll put it back in later. Okay, whoop. There's a needle in the soil. Sometimes needles will get mixed in with soil, so be careful. You may want to do this with gloves. So I've got a root ball to handle. Again, you can see it's not the least bit root bound in here. They used a kind of a woody soil. It's a real chunky wood though. I don't know if you can see it very well. And what you would do is you would take a newspaper. Now this isn't a very big newspaper, that's what I have on hand. And you would just kind of twist this up. And then you would take it and put it around here so you have a way of handling it. If this was longer, I could actually have a tail on this to use as a handle. Like I said, this is what I had on hand for just the moment. But this is how you would handle a large cactus so that you can position it while you're potting it into its new pot. I would put this into a pot no bigger at all than what it's already in. It obviously does not need it. Okay. I've got all kinds of stuff here too. I've got some orchid bark. I've used this for decoration. So you can. I've got a few more here. We're almost done here. All right. I've got a few more. Like I said, there's a lot of different kinds of succulents. When we go down to the store, you'll see what I mean. We were planning on this class for quite a while. We made sure to bring in a huge assortment of succulents. When you guys are able to come in out there on online land, we do hope you come in soon because we really packed the store with beautiful succulents. You really got to see what we've got down there. It's too bad that the snowstorm had to hit when it did. But we have all kinds of things. Some of them you don't even realize right away that they're succulents. You can see some of them are leafy, but this is actually a very thick leaf and thick stem. So you can plant this in with a lot of your succulents. This is another one of those calanchoes. This is the kind I was mentioning that has the rose-type flower. These are only half open. You can see how full they are, especially those of you in the front. You can see how full they really are. So you can really pack in a lot of colors. My recommendation when designing a pot, if you're using a lot of succulents, get different colors and textures together. You know, get the greens and the purples and the reds, the grays and the blues. Really mix them all up. Get some rosettes, get some leafy stuff, some jades, some wavy leaves, some ruffly stuff. You can see this one's starting to bloom. Pretty much all the succulents will bloom at some point or another. So, and you can put them in just about any kind of container that you really want to, since they don't need water very often. And like I said, they're great for those places where you don't want a messy plant, overflowing saucers, things like that. There's even trailing varieties. This one's kind of popular actually. This is string of pearls. Normally these come in a bigger pot and they're trailing down really long. I was able to get some smaller pots in for those of you who would like to use them when you're planting. So we've got all of this to play with. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you down to the store now, and I'll answer any questions you got, and also you can just pick out what you want and just start having fun, and we'll go from there, okay? Well, thanks for tuning in, guys.